Hi class, we're continuing our lesson today with adding and subtracting rational expressions. As we start this, I just want to run through something with you really quick. If we have a denominator of 6 and a denominator of 9, I think we could all agree that to get common denominators, if we're adding or subtracting these, to get common denominators, it's going to be the number 18, yes? Because 6 goes into 18 and 9 goes into 18. Now I want to show you something here quick. And that is, if we were to break this up into its factors, the factors would be 2 multiplied by 3, and this factor is 3 multiplied by 3. So to find the least common multiple, it's going to be all the factors multiplied by each other. Now notice how they each have a factor of 3. So 3 is going to be part of my least common multiple. And I'm only going to write it once because they both have a factor of 3. Now 6 has a factor of 2, where 9 does not, so I'm going to have a factor of 2 be in my least common multiple. And this 9 has another factor of 3 in which 6 does not. So I have to put that in my least common multiple. So my least common multiple is all of these factors multiplied by each other. 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 times 3 is 18. There it is. So what you're doing when you're finding a least common multiple is you're taking all the different factors and you're multiplying them by each other. So knowing that, let's start off with this one. And if we're looking at this, we're subtracting, so we have to get common denominators. And 4w minus 16 and 2w minus 8 clearly are not the same denominator. So what we're going to do here is let's find its factors. So we're going to take out a GCF in the denominator. 4 times the quantity w minus 4. Let's take out a GCF over here. It's 2 times the quantity w minus 4. So if we have to get common denominators, notice how they both have a w minus 4 term. So that's going to be part of our common denominator. W minus 4 is going to be part of your least common multiple, which is your common denominator. Now this one has a factor of 4, and this one has a factor of 2. So to find the least common multiple of both of those, it's obviously the number 4, is it not? They both go into the number 4. So your common denominator is 4 times the quantity w minus 4. Those are all your factors, and so that becomes your GCF. So now we say, what did we multiply the bottom by to get to the denominator right here? Well, we didn't multiply by anything, did we? So let's keep w plus 12 just the way it is. W plus 12. So now what did you multiply the denominator by over here to get to 4 times the quantity w minus 4? You just multiplied by 2, did you not? You just took this 2 and multiplied it by 2 to get 4. So if you multiply the denominator by 2, you got to multiply the numerator by 2 to make an equivalent fraction. So it's 2 times the quantity w plus 4. Now that we have that, we have common denominators, and that's great. So now we're going to put our numerators over the common denominator. So our denominator is 4 times the quantity w minus 4, and our numerator is w plus 12 minus 2 times the quantity w plus 4. We're going to move this negative sign in with the 2 so we can remember to distribute. So now let's combine like terms, class, to completely simplify this. So don't stop once you get to here. Let's combine like terms. So we're going to distribute. So we still have w plus 12 minus 2w minus 8 over 4 times the quantity w minus 4. Okay, let's continue our work. We're going to combine like terms. So 1w minus 2w's is a negative w, and 12 minus 8 is a positive 4. So a negative w plus 4 over 4 times the quantity w minus 4. Now one thing that you're going to notice, class, very often we're not going to want our variable to be negative if possible. Notice how we have a negative w there? Let's factor out a negative 1 to make that a positive w. So if you take out a negative 1, now you have a positive w and a minus 4 over 4 times the quantity w minus 4. So what do you notice in the numerator and the denominator? You have common factors of w minus 4. They cancel. Boom. And your answer is right here, a negative 1/4. And that's what we're doing here today, class. We are simplifying. And notice how a negative 1/4 is much more simple than saying all of this garbage, is it not? So we're simplifying. It takes a lot of practice. Let's try another one at number 4. We have our two denominators, and they're clearly not the same, so we have to get them the same. We have to get common denominators. Let's get our factors. 5 times the quantity, x minus 5. 3 times the quantity, x minus 5. Okay, so we have our factors. They both have an x minus 5 factor, so that's going to be part of our common denominator, the quantity x minus 5. So now the other common denominator is going to be with this 5 and this 3. What number do they both go into? They both go into the number 15. So there's your common denominator, 15 times the quantity x minus 5. And now we have to take a look. To go from this denominator to this denominator, what number did we multiply? We multiplied by the number 3. So this x minus 10 right here has to be multiplied by the number 3. Same thing over here on this right fraction. How did we get from here to here? You multiplied by the number 5. So this x minus 8, multiply it by 5. And there we have it. We have our common denominator. So let's go to our next step. And our common denominator is 15 times the quantity x minus 5. And in the numerator, we're going to have 3 times the quantity x minus 10 minus 5 times the quantity x minus 8. Now let's combine like terms, and first you have to distribute to get you what your terms are. So this becomes 3x minus 30, and this is a negative 5x plus 40. So to combine like terms, we get a negative 2x and a positive 10. Negative 30 plus 40, positive 10. So in our numerator, we have a negative 2x plus 10. In our denominator, we have 15 times the quantity x minus 5. Hopefully you guys see in the numerator now that you could take out a GCF. You can take out a negative 2 from both terms. And then you're left with a positive x and a minus 5. Over 15 times the quantity x minus 5. What do you notice again? We have x minus 5 and x minus 5, one in the numerator, one in the denominator. Those reduce, so your answer becomes a single fraction, a negative 2/15. There's our answer for problem number 4. Okay, moving on to problem number 5. A little something different again. We have trinomials. Whenever you see a trinomial, you got to think factor, because more often than not, it's going to be able to factor. We got to get our factors, so to get our factors, we must factor. We do that by saying y multiplied by y and a negative 5 multiplied by a positive 2. So there's your two factors. Here's our two factors for this trinomial. Y multiplied by y and a positive 2 and a minus 1. Okay, so we have 4 factors. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how both of them have a y plus 2 factor. So that's going to be part of your common denominator. Y plus 2 is going to be a common part of your common denominator. And then this one has a y minus 5, where this one doesn't. And this one has a y minus 1, where this one doesn't. So your denominator is going to be the y plus 2, along with the y minus 5, along with the y minus 1. It's going to be all 3 of those factors multiplied by each other. There's your common denominator. Same thing over here, y plus 2 times y minus 5 times y minus 1. There's 4 factors in the denominator. 2 of them are the same, y plus 2. So your common denominator is 1, 2, 3 factors all multiplied by each other. Hopefully that makes sense. So now, in our first fraction, we have a y minus 5 and a y plus 2. Here's our y minus 5 and our y plus 2. But we had to multiply by the quantity y minus 1 in the denominator. So if we're going to multiply the denominator by y minus 1, we got to multiply the numerator y minus 5 times y minus 1. Same thing over here. You had a y plus 2 and a y minus 1 factor, so that's that one and that one. But you didn't have a y minus 5 factor. So our denominator, we had to multiply by the factor of y minus 5. So if we do that in the denominator, we certainly have to do that in the numerator. So y has to be multiplied by y minus 5. Okay, you have successfully gotten common denominators. This is good news. So now let's put our numerator over that common denominator. Your common denominator is y plus 2 times y minus 5 times y minus 1. And here is your numerator. Let's FOIL this. So you're going to get y squared minus 1y minus 5y is minus 6y. And then a negative 5 times negative 1 is a positive 5. Let's use the distributive property right here to get plus a y squared and a minus 5y. Continuing, we're going to combine like terms. So you have 1y squared plus 1y squared is 2y squared. You have a negative 6y and a negative 5y to make a negative 11y. And then you have a constant term of a positive 5. There's your numerator. And your denominator is these three factors of y plus 2 times y minus 5 times y minus 1. Whew! A lot of times you'd be done at this stage. However, I always want you to be aware whenever you see a trinomial, it's possible it can be factored. So always be aware of that. I see a trinomial in the numerator. Let's see if I could factor that guy. So I have 2y squared, which means I have to have 2y multiplied by 1y. Factors of 5 to get me a negative 11. Negative 5 over here. Negative 1 right there. Because here I would get a negative 10y. Minus 1y is your negative 11y. So this can be factored. So that's why I want you guys to be aware. Whenever you see a trinomial, see if you could factor that guy down. And here is our denominator of y plus 2 times y minus 5 times y minus 1. So what do you notice in the numerator and the denominator? Bam, bam, y minus 5's cancel. So in the numerator, you're left with 2y minus 1. And in the denominator, you have the two factors of y plus 2 times y minus 1. These are long problems. They take a lot of effort. You guys pause the video, please. Try the last one on your own. Okay, hopefully first you factored, and you got x minus 4 and x plus 3. And you factored this one, and you got x plus 3 and x plus 2. So your common denominator, they both have an x plus 3 factor. And then the other two factors is x minus 4 and x plus 2. So your common denominator is this one, and this one, all multiplied by each other. X plus 3, x minus 4, and x plus 2. There's your common denominator. X plus 3, x minus 4, and x plus 2. Okay. So in the denominator, you multiplied by x plus 2. So in the numerator, the x has to be multiplied by x plus 2. For the other fraction, the denominator, you had to multiply by the quantity x minus 4. So this 3 has to be multiplied by x minus 4. Now what you did is you put everything over the common denominator of x plus 3, x minus 4, x plus 2. And your numerators, you simplified them. So x times x is x squared. And x times 2 is a positive 2x. The negative 3, you distributed to make a negative 3x and a positive 12. So then you combine like terms. And when you combine like terms, you got x squared minus an x plus 12 divided by x plus 3 times x minus 4 times x plus 2. And then I told you whenever you see a trinomial, always try to factor it to see if it can be factored, because if it can be factored, a lot of times it can reduce from top to bottom. However, this trinomial right here cannot be factored. So this is your answer right here. You can't reduce any further than that. Not an easy lesson. Hopefully everything went okay for you. If it did not, please ask me questions when you get to class tomorrow.